Merry Christmas! Welcome to this episode of Listen to Your Coaches. I'm your coach, Mike Wilkins, here with Coach Will Morrill. This week, we're going to talk about our Christmas wishes. All right, so we're going to run through, a brief list, or maybe not so brief list, of things that we want for Christmas for the combat sports community and ourselves. All right? Absolutely. Will, do you want to start us off with our Christmas wish list?
I sure do. So, first thing I've got on my list is I wish that when judges made a really bad call, and I don't know how exactly that would be determined, but we've all seen them where, one judge scores a fight just egregiously badly, and like everyone knows it's bad. I feel like that judge should have to publicly explain their thinking to the commission, and if either A, the commission like as a whole does not agree with their scoring, or two, maybe they're like, hey, in the moment I thought this, but like as I'm, like running it back, I understand why everyone thinks I did it wrong. They can then go and overturn that particular scorecard. So it's not necessarily going to overturn fights, but it could,
So I like that they should be held accountable for maybe a bad scoring, but I do not know if I'm in the opinion that the score should then therefore be able to change after the fact.
See, I do. Because think about it. If you imagine you were on the receiving end of just like a terrible robbery, right?
Yeah.
And you, because of that, now got paid half as much. And maybe you were like a top 5 guy and you were like looking for a title shot, which means you're going to get like exponentially more money each fight because you're getting pay-per-view points now. Oh. And now you're taking a big step down the ladder because, potentially one guy or maybe a couple guys got it wrong. But they now have a chance to go and make it right.
So here goes my thought on that. If it's one judge who got it wrong, then it wouldn't change the outcome of a fight.
Right.
Because it takes 2 judges to get it wrong.
Or if it did change the outcome of the fight, that means it was actually close.
Yeah.
What about this? All right, what about this? What if instead of overturning it, what if it could become a no contest?
So then what happens to the guy who won? Does he have to give back his money?
No, they both get paid.
You know what? I'm just not in favor of the result changing due to a judge's poor score. I am in favor of a result changing due to like a mistake, like for example,
like a foul or
no, not a foul. Well, I mean, that's not what I'm thinking. I'm thinking like, let's say like they read the scorecards wrong, right?
Yeah.
They were like, 29-28 blue, 29-28 red, and then they accidentally read the third scorecard as 28-28. So it was a majority draw, but it was actually scored 29-28. Like changing something like that, because that's what it was actually scored at the time. There was an error in the announcing, or
yeah. I mean, I think that should absolutely be the case, but I think that I haven't thought this out super well, but I could totally see that becoming a no contest. If it stops someone from having an L on their professional record that is not warranted.
What do you think about it? Taking away the loss, but not taking away the win. Like maybe leave it as a win on the winner's record, but a no contest on the loser's record.
Imagine what that looks like, though. You're on like Tapology or Wikipedia or whatever, and you're looking through someone's fights, and you're like, "Oh man, I didn't so and so fight this guy."
Yeah, well, imagine what it looks like whenever your bet's cashed on FanDuel, and then they're like, "Oh, we need that money back 2 days later."
Oh, I didn't even think about that because betting is a massive part of it.
Massive part of combat sports. So I just don't think that it's rational to be able to change it after the fact. But I think holding the judges maybe a little bit more accountable helps moving forward, right? And even in the sense of like, and I understand that like maybe the fights that you're talking about probably are UFC higher caliber fights. Mm-hmm. So in that sense, like you should be like, well, they should already know better. But maybe for the local level, when you see some scorecards that are askew, if they're held to like maybe that same type of rationale and criteria of having to explain their score, when it's kind of like an odd score in hindsight, helps with their education as well and helps them score better in the future. Kind of like you know, like if you have like a job and then you meet with your supervisor and they give you like a rundown on how,
Right.
like a progress report or
Yeah.
like something like
Or
that.
like for me, you know, I have like my CSCS, right, which is a strength and conditioning certification. Every 3 years, I have to come up with a certain amount of CEUs, continuing education units, and like that's kind of like the same idea where like they're, you know, perhaps they mess up criteria in this way, and then they have to like go take a course on like, hey, this is what you're looking for in these situations.
Yeah.
Or maybe they need to go like train more jiu-jitsu or whatever it is.
Yeah.
How about I'll do you one better then. Instead of it affecting the outcome of the fight, they could have like a strike system where they're like, all right, if you know we deem this to be like definitely wrong, and you do that, I don't know, 3 times in a calendar year, you get demoted to like, I don't know, not being a judge anymore.
Yeah, maybe.
But
maybe.
I think the part that we can both agree on is there should be some sort of system that holds judges more accountable.
Yes, and I believe that like maybe in some areas there is like I do think because like that is not you bringing this up is not the first time I've heard of like something like that. So perhaps some places do institute something like that. Maybe kind of like off the books. So maybe something that you can put on the books as well.
Yeah, I mean, all right. Just think of it like this. Okay, so you and I, you know, we operate mostly in the PA and Ohio Athletic Commission, right?
Yeah.
You and I have both seen scores where we're like, I disagree with this, right?
Yes.
So, just one off the top of my head, Tim Bailey, one of our fighters. I don't know which fight of his it was. It was 2-3 fights ago. He had a fight that was relatively close.
Yeah.
I do feel like he won it.
Yeah.
And the scores there were 2 29-28s for his opponent, and there was 1 30-27 for Tim.
Oh, so like like that, like it's like, hey, like how could you guys see this fight so different that one judge thought Tim won every round,
yes,
but the other 2 judges, you know, thought he lost 2 rounds. So
exactly.
so judge 1 disagreed with judge 2 and 3 on 2 of the rounds.
Right. And so one, which that happens, right? Like
it could be that close.
If it's a close round,
it could
it's
be
like,
that
hey,
close.
you know, that it could make sense.
Yes.
But here you and I are, you know, months, maybe a year later, discussing this, and do we have any way of like letting the commission know we're not happy about that? Do we have any way of finding out what the judge's rationale is?
Well, here's the thing, like like in a situation such as that, I don't know how unhappy I am with it because like I thought that fight was that close, and if you're telling me like this fight is within the margins of like, yo, this round was like a 48 to a 52 or a 49 to a 51 on the percentage scale, and then that's like, you know, right there, that's close enough and opinion based that it could be like it's reasonable that I might say blue and you might say red, right? And if we have 3 of those rounds in a row, it's reasonable that we disagree 3 times in a row.
Totally. And that's the problem with MMA scoring is that like, you know, you could have a very close fight and you could get 3 completely different scorecards. You know, you could be like, oh, round 1, 2 of the judges had this guy, and then round 2, the other, you know, 2 other judges, like, you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Agreed on something else, and like you could just get totally wonky scores. You could also get 30-27s, and it sounds like that's a dominant victory, but it could have been razor close the whole time.
Yeah, because each round could be 51-49, like that close, right? And then you could have a 29-28 that was not that close. Like you just like barely lost 1 round, but you know, dominated not enough for 10-8s, but dominated 2 of the 3 rounds. Exactly. And it's like, oh, you know, that was real close there.
Maybe I should have had a bigger wish, which would be for different scoring, but I feel like that's a...
Yeah, I thought about that as well, but I felt like I would need to come with more of like have an answer, not just a prayer.
Yeah, exactly. Because that's the thing is like, I thought about that as well on my list, and I was like, I don't have the answers.
Yeah, I don't have the answers, so like I that definitely comes up with my list. So like, but I mean, I guess, I mean, so here's the thing, like it would make my wish list, a better scoring system would make my wish list like on a true wish list.
Right.
But for the sake of the episode, I want to have the answers.
Yeah, exactly.
For the talking points not as well, not just like, oh, I hope, you know, world hunger ends. Right?
Yeah.
Like, all right, how? Like, I don't know, but I do hope it ends.
Yeah,
like,
I could just sit here and I could be like, hey, dude, I wish we had a new scoring system. And you're like, yeah, me too.
Yeah, dude.
All right, next one.
Next. Yeah. So that is how I feel about that.
But I think as a separate issue, and this is really what I think my first thing on the wish list is I wish that judges would be held accountable for poor scorecards.
Yeah, so I think that's fair. Now, is your list in order of most wanted to least wanted, or is there any order, rhyme, or reason with your list?
It's roughly in least to most, but it's
same.
roughly.
Mine's going to roughly be in least to most as well because, just trying to have a main event.
Yeah. And also, like, to be honest, at the end of this, if you were like, no, dude, here's why your list should be like the opposite order, I'd be like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm honestly, I mean, my number one is my number one, like hardcore, far and away. But, like,
Yeah.
I mean, I'll take any of them.
Fair enough.
All right, so let's move on to my number 5. So my number 5 is, I wish there was like some type of UFC pay-per-view subscription.
Bro, that is a great one.
Yeah, so what I'm talking about, and this little shout out to 247 Fighting Championships on this one. So I have a yearly subscription to the 247 Fighting Championships, and on their app, it's similar to like Fight Pass, where you can go and you can rewatch old events. You can even just, instead of having to skim through all the events, you can search like a fighter such as James Padmore, and then look up his fights and watch his past fights and grappling matches from the Sprawl and the Bergs and things of that nature. But also what's included in the tier of membership I got is the pay-per-view to every single one of their events. So if for some reason I wasn't at the event, which, I can't remember the last one I can remember the last one I wasn't at. It was when Visoki fought in Johnstown because I was on vacation. So that was the last one I wasn't at. But, my wife gets to watch, I know the pay-per-view's there. And she gets to watch it, and like I don't have to worry about ordering it or anything. I've got them all for the year. It's a yearly subscription. And that'd be nice, and you save money doing it too, right? Yeah. Like if you bought them each individually, you save money. And someone who's in a position such as me, who would like to watch every UFC pay-per-view, right? Especially it being my profession, so like even for educational purposes, but like I still love the sport and watch it for entertainment purposes. If I could like save some money on the pay-per-views there. By like, buying like a plan at the beginning of the year, similar to like an NFL Sunday ticket type deal. And then I would save money throughout the year, then that'd be great. And then maybe that doesn't make sense for everybody. Maybe you're the person who's like, hey man, I only like these 6 fighters, so I only watch their pay-per-view. So actually, it'd be better for me just to order their pay-per-views at full price. But since I'm so like in deep and would love to have access to every pay-per-view, I wish there was some type of subscription process in which I could save a little money, and have access to the UFC pay-per-views from, that calendar year.
And it's also fun too, because like, so for example, we were just recently cornering James, right?
Yes.
That fight was on the same night as the Leon Colby fight.
Yes.
So you and I are getting home, and like the pay-per-view's already started, what I mean? So it's like, do you really want to get home and then be like, oh, let me go buy this pay-per-view and only catch like 2.5 fights, and then like, I guess the next morning I'm gonna have to watch the other 2, and like that just like sucks.
Right. Where what I could have done and what I would have done is I would have got home, I would have started it, and I would just stay off my phone, be like an hour or so behind wherever I was, watch it through. If I fall asleep, wake it up and finish it off in the morning. Like, you know what I mean? But like, I suppose I could still be doing that by ordering the pay-per-view, but
it feels different.
It does feel different. And the other thing is like, and obviously this math doesn't track. Oh, I'm looking for a savings though with the subscription. I'm assuming that like there is some type of like savings. Like we're like, okay, in a typical calendar year, there's 18 pay-per-views. They're $80 each, so that's X amount of money. You save 30% by ordering the yearly subscription up front.
Yeah.
The other thing that happens for me when I order like yearly subscriptions up front, like I pay for it, right? And then after like a month, and now it feels free.
Yeah,
right? Like obviously it's not. And I like, I've paid for this, but it just starts to like feel free. Right. And if it feels free, it makes me feel better.
Dude, me too. Yeah. Me too. And there is something to that like psychology of it.
Yeah, dude, it's your perception, It's like they say, like, you know what I mean? If you're taking like something and it's a placebo, but it works.
Right. Who cares?
Yeah, who cares? Yeah.
Dude, all right. I'm gonna hit you with something that you might not know.
Yeah.
And I did not know this until August of 21, right? I found this out during my wedding.
Oh, okay.
I was there with my cousin's husband, my cousin-in-law. I don't know.
I just would run cousin on that.
But yeah, my cousin Josh. Actually, his name's Josh Barnett. Funny enough.
Oh yeah.
But he's like too new to the game to like probably know that much about Josh Barnett. But anyways, shout out Josh. That's my my British homie who is also very, very into MMA. And he was like, yeah, dude, like in London we don't pay for like pay-per-views.
Yeah.
We have, I think it's called BT Sports, and it's like a yearly subscription, and I think it's like stupidly cheap. I want to say it's like $30 a year or something like that.
Yeah.
And just all the pay-per-views are there. Now, here's the downside.
That recently got bought.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's how I know. I found out Saturday night.
Gotcha.
If you know what I'm saying.
I know what you're
if
saying.
you catch my
I
drift.
catch your drift. So,
it's like TNT Sports now, and I couldn't find it.
I get what you're saying. But like, I mean, dude, yeah, that's like a super cool system. But here's the downside to it. I was like, dude, that's so sick. Like, it must be so easy for you to watch UFC. And he's like, yeah, but I also have to wake up at 4 a.m.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like, pros and cons, which I know you've experienced with wrestling, and I experience with Muay Thai sometimes. Usually for me, it's like a Friday morning, and I'm like waking up early.
Oh, dude, I experienced that so hard with wrestling. Like, like a 4:30, 3:30 a.m. to watch international wrestling's common happening in my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But overall, I think that's a super solid pick.
That was a good one, right?
Yeah, it is
Yeah,
really
I thought
good.
you would like that.
Oh, love it.
All right, you want to run your next one.
I'll bring my next one, my number 4. Okay. This is one actually I think you might disagree on. Okay?
All right, sweet.
And I worded this in a way so that I think you'll agree with it at least partially. Okay. I think there should at least be an option for you to run full rules MMA and Muay Thai for amateurs.
Bro.
What's up?
What are you doing to me?
Is that one of yours?
It's on my list.
Oh, really?
Let me do it on. So let's tag team this. I'm going to quickly
Hit me.
put it where it is on my list. And it would be my number 3. So it'd be my number 3. So we're going to skip my number 4 and we're going to tag team this. You brought it up first. It's your number 4, although I clearly think a little more of it since I made it my number 3. So
Definitely.
let's go ahead. Let me hear you.
I also think that yours is going to be slightly different. And
It's going to be different.
And I think you and I are going to disagree on this in at least some ways, okay?
Yeah.
So I tend to lean towards like, this is what the sport is. Why are we babying it?
Yes.
Every time I bring this up,
I used to lean to that.
you always are like, hey, but like, what if you have someone who started a little bit later and maybe they haven't wrestled as much or whatever, and like you want to give them the option to ease into it. And I'm like, that does make sense. I like that as an option though. And I really do think it should be like the default should be full rules in my mind, right?
Like when you say full rules, are you saying pro rules as
Pro
an
rules.
amateur?
As
like
an amateur,
head kicks, elbows,
head
knees
kicks,
to the head,
elbows,
twisting leg locks.
twisting leg locks, the whole thing.
Man, I disagree. I disagree with full rules for amateurs.
All right.
I do agree. So currently, let's use Pennsylvania
Okay.
as our fight.
Yeah.
Probably about half of our fights here.
Real quick, for anyone who doesn't know like what you're about to get at, can you break down like in MMA?
Yeah, I'll break it down.
Yeah.
So right now in Pennsylvania, for the amateur scene, there are 2 levels of fighting. There's the novice level and then there's the advanced level. All right. The novice level, you fight your first 3 fights at. Okay. Now you have to, in order to advance up, you need a winning record. So you need to be 2-1 in order to advance, at least 2-1 in order to advance into advanced roles. Now both combatants need to qualify for advanced roles to do advanced roles. So first, what are novice roles? Well, novice roles are shorter rounds. They're 2-minute rounds. So we got 3 2-minute rounds. So there goes one difference as opposed to advanced roles, which would be 3-minute rounds. Difference number 2 is the combatants were shin guards, right? Which I am fully against.
Definitely.
That's
Definitely.
I just like I can't, and I'm leaning. I'm gonna be. It may surprise a lot of you, but I'm going to defend novice rules, and not just for the show. I truly believe this. Shin guards need to go. They're dumb. They get in the way, and they're not doing what you think they're doing. They're mainly for show.
Yes.
You know, especially the style of shin guard that they wear. And for this purpose of a fight, like you can drop these shin guards. All right, so they wear shin guards. Number 2, the only strikes allowed on the ground are to the body. All right. So once the fight is once there's anything that would be considered a grounded opponent, and I'm sure most of you watch professional MMA, UFC, wherever you're not allowed to knee them or kick them in the head anymore, like a hand down or whatever, or on their knees, obviously on the ground. They no longer allow you to strike to the head with anything, right? Whereas in advanced amateurs, you are allowed to strike to the head with only the hands, right? You're not allowed to utilize the elbows until pro, and you're never allowed to utilize knees or kicks to the head on a grounded opponent unless you're
in Asia.
In Asia, yeah, they'll allow that there. But I bet not the majority of our audience is very familiar with the UFC rules, the standard mixed martial arts rules. So those are the main differences, right? The time, the allowable techniques, right? And then there's a difference between advanced amateur and pro. The difference would be time again, 3-minute round versus a 5-minute round. Also now on the feet. And advanced amateurs at any level of amateur in Pennsylvania, you are only allowed to strike with the hand to the head. You can kick the body, you can knee the body, but no elbows, kicks, or knees to the head. Whereas in pros, you are. And then on the ground, only hands to the head, no elbows to the head. And then twisting hooks. Leg locks, such as heel hooks and toe holds, like anything that twists the joint against the knee. So that's the major differences.
Okay.
So why where do you want me to start to argue that right now?
So I'm going to start and say we've had this conversation many times, and you have convinced me that novice rules has its place.
It has a place.
I would argue that the default should be full rules from the beginning. Novice rules is an option for you. Explain to me why you... Let's just start with that. Explain to me why do you think full rules should not be the default?
On my list, first off, before we get into, should there even be a difference between amateur and pro rules? All right, which you're saying there shouldn't.
Correct.
All right. My list was a waiver to allow somebody who would not qualify due to the 3-fight minimum for advanced rules to be able to waive through that and do advanced rules right off the rip. Right?
100%.
And I think there should be some types of qualifications for it. Not just I'm tough, bro.
Right.
Right? For an example, we have Lucas Martin, right? He just fought a novice amateur fight. He's a Division II national champion wrestler. We train him, so I see how good he is. And he fought another Division II wrestler. Right? So the rules weren't protecting either of them.
Exactly.
Right? And he was originally scheduled to have a bout against another wrestler, a former Division I wrestler who did qualify for the advanced rules, but since Luke did not, they were going to have to fight at novice rules, had the fight taken place. So I think people like that should be able to be waived out, right? Just like I think certain people should be able to waive themselves straight pro. Like when they were going to make Bo Nickel fight an amateur fight.
Yeah, dude.
And I'm like... And if he wanted to, that's fine. I know it's going to be difficult. And I know he had two. So, that's going to be difficult to find somebody who's willing to fight Bo Nickel as an amateur. But, he should have been eligible to be waived to pro. I heard a story of Jake Herbert, who, was a world...
wrestler, right?
Yeah, he was a 2-time NCAA champ. Ooh, he might be a 3-time. He won a Hodge Trophy, and he was definitely 2009. He was a world silver medalist, world silver medalist, and they were like, "You can't be a pro fighter." It's this is fucking utterly ridiculous. Yeah. First off, not only are you doing him a disservice, but the poor person that you're gonna make him fight.
Yeah,
that's unfair.
And who's going to say yes to that fight? Do you think it's someone who really knows what they're getting into, or do you think it's someone who's like, this guy's a wrestler, I'm gonna take the fight because I'm tough.
Yeah, exactly. So it almost leans itself to being the most unfair mismatch. All right, so let's get back on track here.
Yes.
I find a place for the novice rules and the advanced amateur rules to be separate, and I find a place for that to be separate from pro. You don't. All right. Explain why you don't.
I think we're both saying the same thing, but to different sides. I think I'm 60-40 one way and you're 60-40 the other way. I think the default should be pro rules, right?
I don't think amateurs should fight pro rules. I think that should be maybe a very elite exception.
Let's work through the rules and figure out which ones you disagree with. Okay, so let's start with time. 3.5s as opposed to 3.2s or 3s.
Okay, so the time I'm not opposed to.
Okay.
Although I appreciate it being a shorter fight.
I can understand that, but I still think it should just be a standard thing, right? Like Pee Wee football isn't like less time, right?
Yes, it is.
Oh, it is?
Every level of football progressively gets more time.
For real? Well, there you go. I don't know anything about sports.
Yeah, like Pee Wee, depending on the level, might be 4 8-minute quarters, up to 4 10-minute quarters. I believe high school is 4 12-minute quarters.
There you go.
And then college and the NFL are 4 15-minute quarters.
Okay.
Even like basketball, same thing.
Well, I disagree
Basketball
with that too.
progressively gets a longer game.
I disagree with that as well. I think that the nature of the game should mostly stay the same. But with that said, I
Even
wouldn't fight you too
baseball,
hard
like
on
in
that.
Little League, you play 6 innings. In Pony League and Colt, in high school, you play 7 innings.
For real?
I think college might play 7 innings, and then pro you play 9.
Dude, that's crazy. I had no idea.
Wrestling, same thing. In Little League,
Yeah.
you wrestle 3 1-minute periods. Middle school, you wrestle 3 1.5-minute periods. High school, 3 2-minute periods. College is a 3-minute first period, the 2-minute period.
Well, maybe that's the standard
It's
then.
pretty standard across, and like those are sports that I'm familiar with, that I've participated in.
All right, well, maybe I'm the outlier here. But anyways, let's not get lost in the time. What about elbows? How do you feel about
I'm out on elbows for amateurs.
I'm in on elbows.
Okay.
How, in what way do you find them significantly like dangerous enough to where they shouldn't have to deal with them?
Oh, I just think they cause more superficial damage.
Right, and I think that's actually safer.
Okay.
Okay, so let's say that you're in like a crazy dogfight, advanced AME rule set, right?
Yeah.
And you drop the guy, you go down, you follow up, you ground and pound. He's able to like pull you in guard. He somehow stands up. You drop him again. You're ground and pounding, and like he makes his way out, right? That dude might have got concussed like 3 times. Whereas if you were able to land some elbows, that would have either A, potentially have stopped the fight earlier, right? Or B, maybe you would have landed something that's superficial and you get a big cut. And like that's not really, in my mind, that's not something that someone needs to be protected from, right? Because like a superficial cut, it looks bad, but that's not actually damaging you like long term.
Okay, it might be though. I think it does damage you long term.
It can, and
I think
people-
right there, like the scar tissue. You think of like the Diaz
That's a
scar
good
tissue
point.
issue. Now that's reopening, and like like obviously the number is different for each person, but like if you have a certain amount of like times this cut can
Right.
open up, then you're more. It's just more likely. It's not like this can't happen with punches.
Right, for sure.
It's just, in
It's
my
way
opinion,
more likely.
with elbows. So you're more likely to then like have to go to the hospital, medical bills.
That's fair.
Things like that. Also, and so I don't know if we're ready to get to my big sticking point on why I think there should be differences. Is I'm expecting and assuming and believe it should be allowed for you to assume an amateur has a regular job.
That's a fair point as well.
Right? So like that fighting, although it may be their priority passionately, but like for like fiscal means is not their priority. And then that's where the change is ideally coming as a professional. Now it's professional.
That's a fair point.
Right? So like that's why I feel like, you're more likely to allow like less or more things due to that, right? Like it's like, okay, like in the IBJJF in the masters divisions, they don't allow heel hooks yet, right? And it's like, okay, like you can have your thoughts on it, but like like, hey, that 42-year-old father at 3 has to be at work Monday morning, has to be there, and he's already taken enough of a risk.
Yeah.
And although there's tons of positive benefits and stuff, there is like an inherent risk that maybe like a professional is more willing to take than this person isn't. And then you're going to have like a hard ass be like, well, then don't do it. Be like, okay.
Right.
You want everybody to be a fan of this. You want everybody to, jiu-jitsu's for everybody. Mm-hmm. But
then
no,
it's not.
but it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah. But now it's not because we took out a technique that tends to have a higher significant injury, right? Like you know what I mean? Like, I popped my elbow. Typically has less of a significance than, hey, I tore everything in my knee.
Right. And see, that was the one point that I was going to be like, I do 100% agree with you on, is potentially not allowing heel hooks, because again, you can just shred someone's knee open. But I get what you're saying too, because like again, if you split someone's like face open completely, you know, and then someone's got to show up to like an office job with like, or like a sales job, and they've got staples all along here, you know what I mean? Like that could significantly impact it.
And that's the same thing I feel with like head kicks. No, I'm not saying there's no space for this in amateur fighting. I just think that's like, okay, like you're like, hey, like I'm not ready to be a pro, but I'm ready to practice these pro roles, right? Like, because I'm going to be a pro, right? Like, it's like, yeah, like the odds of me not turning pro are slim to none, you know? So, like, I feel like there should be a division for that, but also a division for a true amateur.
See, and that's why I think we're saying the same thing to different degrees. I think you're saying, like, the default should be something kind of similar to what we have with exceptions for exceptional people, and I'm saying it, like, that should be the default with exceptions the other direction. But you know what, dude? I think you're bringing me over to your side even more. And this is probably the most in depth that we've talked about it, because I think you're right. I think that people who are competing, like, what do you think the percentage of people who compete in an amateur level of MMA? What percentage of those guys go on to pros?
I'd be very curious to find out, but I'm gonna say less than 5%.
That's the exact number I was gonna say. I was going to say 5% or less.
I know. I don't have any actual data to back it up. That's just me doing a guess. You know,
I would say that's pretty.
Considering like maybe accurate. All the amateur fighters that I've known in my career, and those of them who have then eventually ended up being a pro fighter.
Right. Yeah. That sounds about right to me.
1 out of 20.
So again,
actually, now I'm starting to think that might be a big number. 1 out of 20 of the fighters that I've known being on the cards with.
Oh yeah.
Cornering on these cards with. It might be more so like. Yeah, it might be far less actually.
Did you know what? You've brought me 100% to your side then. I think there should be waivers and exceptions for the exceptional people, but the baseline should be what it is.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Okay. And now the novice rules, and don't forget on my list I was asking for a waiver, right? Due to like the Luke Martins of the world,
exactly,
and things like that. But I do also. I used to be super anti because the novice rules, because I'm like, oh, that's such a bastardized version of MMA until I started. That was when I was a fighter. Now that I'm a coach, now I'm like, oh, like I couldn't see anything outside of my like bubble, right? Now I see, oh, people, you know, especially the more mainstream the sports get, people are now entering in like who didn't wrestle in like elementary school, who like, you know what I mean? And like maybe like it allows you to stay in it longer, because like if that wasn't there, I might not let you fight as soon.
Right. Yeah.
But since that rule set's there, I might be more willing to think that it's okay for you to fight a little earlier. So I think that helps actually like broaden in the bubble that, you know, encapsulates
people
the sport.
Who are gonna want to do it and watch it and just be involved.
Yeah.
All right, you're making a good point. I think the last sticking point would be, what do you think about the requirements for getting out of novice rules into advanced AMI rules?
So I think like, you know, you should be able to waiver out of that depending on what's going on. Also, like right now, it's like, 3 fight minimum with a winning record. And I'm like, that doesn't make sense to me, because if I'm 2-0, why can't I be in advanced rules? 3 fight minimum. Okay, so I can then take this third fight and I can lose horribly.
Yeah.
But I still get advanced rules the next fight.
Right.
Right? Like I think it should be like, all right, like 3 fight minimum, or 3 fights or 2 wins.
Yeah.
You know, 3 fights or 2 wins, you know, and then you get the waivered out as somebody who doesn't have like an exception with their background.
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean,
I think that makes a lot of sense.
And that's what was on my wish list.
Dude, and you know what? Now it's on mine, because you drew me over.
Let's go, dude.
Yeah. The only thing we didn't discuss there is I think you should be able to do the same thing with Muay Thai. Because currently, like, America has like their, you know, C class, B class, A class, all that kind of stuff. And like, the way I look at it with Muay Thai is like we're taking out all of now the twisting leg locks, or, you know, anything leg lock related. So you don't need to learn that, right? And it's just a much more simple sport than MMA because of all the ground game you don't have to learn. So it's like, all right, you should be able to protect yourself from elbows. You know?
Yeah.
So I'm all for taking the elbow pads off. And again, maybe I need to think about this a little bit more, but at the very least, I think there should be options.
The elbow pads, how much are the elbow pads really inhibiting an amateur? Like how significant of a
I think
like,
there's
you know what I mean?
2 big issues with them. I think that one, you should be able to use your elbows to cut people. Like that should be part of the game, right?
Right.
Again,
but now we're talking about the cut thing though.
Exactly. And you made a good point. So like maybe I'm going to go back on that However,
and it's just about practice for amateurs, right? It's just about practice. So like, if it's not like,
yeah,
dude,
no, you're making
I think
good
I'm
points
for elbow
there.
pads.
My other big thing is I think that elbow pads are really difficult to like keep in place.
So that's my problem with the shin pads
Yeah.
too. Like if the shin pads literally didn't get in the way, twist, and then kind of like ruin the grappling, and also make you look like a dork.
Dude, and also like what are they protecting you from?
Yeah, what are they protecting you from?
Because there's no head kicks.
Yeah.
So what are you gonna get kicked in the ribs too hard?
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
who cares?
Is your leg gonna hurt? Like
Yeah.
Like dude.
What are you gonna check a kick too hard? You're gonna have a bruise.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm super anti shin guards.
Yeah.
Because I do think they interfere and they don't serve the purpose that,
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Like you're not.
They're not actually
eating
protecting
shins
you.
yeah. Exactly.
So yeah, no, I might get on board with elbow pads, but I think that elbows should be allowed.
Well, if you're saying they're hard to stay in place, well, then that's an issue for me, right? If they're hard to stay in place. Also, you ever wear those big combat sports ones, right? And I'm like, I hate when the fighters wear those ones because I'm like, dude, this is severely impacting your grappling, right? You're unable to like bend your arms fully and stuff. It's just like,
and people can get unnatural grips on you. You know what I mean? Like if I'm trying to hit an arm drag and just you have a bare arm that's like maybe sweaty, it's very different than grabbing like someone's arm with elbow pads.
Yeah, for sure.
So
I like those smaller elbow pads because it allows you to still like throw the motion, but it doesn't take away from like the grappling portion, which is so important to me.
Exactly. Me too. That's like a big part of Muay Thai. I think is like being able to like clinch correctly.
Yeah.
So, and like a lot of times, like someone's elbow pad will slide around and expose the elbow anyways, and like I don't know.
All right, yeah.
But regardless, I think we're on the same page. There should be options within.
Options, yeah. I think we got it across. Let's move on because I feel like we spent a whole lot of time on number 4, which that was my number 3, but I'm going to replace my 3 and 4.
All right, cool.
So let's move to your number 3.
All right, let's keep things moving here. So my number 3. Dude, I might have read mine out of order. I totally did. All right.
Dude, there's 5. It was hard to keep them in place.
I wrote them out not in the order, and then I numbered them in the correct order. So I read you my 3. This is actually...
What was 3?
The 3 was the judges, right?
So you started with 3.
Yeah, so this is actually my 5, but whatever. Like I said, it doesn't matter that much. All right.
What was the other one? The scoring system was your 4?
Scoring system...
Or no, not that... the one we just talked about the rules.
The rules. That was my 4.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So this one was actually
would have been your 5. All right.
Okay. So
maybe it'll be a little mild.
And this is another one that I think you're going to disagree with heavily.
Oh shit.
You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right. I think that they should bring back the Pride style Super Hulk tournament.
Oh, I couldn't disagree with this one.
That's on my wish list, dude.
Yeah.
I love it.
So that's on your wish list just for like, dude, it's the way like, yeah, man, like you don't really you don't really wish for it. And that's why it's your 5. Like you wish for it, but like, do you want to coach somebody in it? Would you want to corner that? And if so, which one of your fighters 155 pounds and below are you putting against heavyweights?
Well, it's usually not 155 pounds.
What is it?
It's usually guys who are somewhere between like 185 and 205, taking on dudes who are like 300 plus.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, even that.
And I would be good on either end of it. I would totally, want to corner Lonnie in that, and I would totally be down to corner someone who's, 190 pounds going against the Super Hulks. And usually, like in Pride, think about it. Who are the big guys? Hungman Choi, Giant Silva, Bob Sapp. Like, we're not talking about... And Bob Sapp was decent in his time. Like, he did beat Ernesto Houston, whatever. But, like, we're not talking about dudes... It's not like GSP up at 350. You know what I mean? Like,
right. Well, that's what I'm thinking. Because I'm thinking of, like, Genki Sudo, like, fighting Butterbean.
Yeah, but, like... there's not a lot of 300 plus pound guys who are like legitimately good at martial arts. Well,
so here goes where I'm gonna. Okay, yes, this is true. Here goes where I'm swinging. So like I am so pro weight classes. Mm-hmm. Like I'm definitely in the weight classes. One of the things that I dislike about jiu-jitsu is I'm not a huge fan of the open weight.
Oh, I love it.
I don't like it. Like I think like then why are we doing the weight classes?
Because the weight classes to me are like the sport aspect of it.
Yes.
Whereas like the open weight is like the fighting martial artsy aspect of it. You know what I mean?
Right. And I think that actually showed when technique was not as good. Mm-hmm. Right? Now, like, I mean, okay, like let's talk about your heavyweights from the early 2000s and your heavyweights right now. Compare a heavyweight from 2008, like your average heavyweight, UFC heavyweight from 2008 versus your average welterweight from 2008. And you're like, yeah, like these heavyweights did beat them because they're bigger or whatever, but these welterweights are far more skilled, right? Now do it, right? You're like, oh yeah, the welterweights are still more skilled, but man, dude, these heavyweights are skilled as hell. In fact, the GOAT is a heavyweight.
That's crazy.
You know what I mean? And it's like, oh, is he the GOAT because he's big? No, dude, he's the GOAT because he's just the best.
Dude, check it out. Okay, I like this. From, let's say, 2000 and... Let's say, like, pre-Brock, right? Like, who are the best heavyweight UFC fighters?
Pre-Brock?
Pre-Brock.
Like Randy Couture.
Randy Couture.
Andre Arlovsky, Tim Sylvia. I'm just like trying to name the champions. Yeah, like Barnett was a champion. Yeah. Randleman was a champion.
Okay,
Coleman.
We've got a good enough list. Okay, imagine any of those guys fighting Tom Aspinall.
Oh yeah, that's not a good
They're
look.
getting smoked.
They're getting
like,
smoked.
Dude, and, well,
imagine any of them fighting John Jones.
Dude.
That's what I'm saying.
But honestly, Aspinall's a little bit of an outlier because Aspinall is like one of the few heavyweights who I think is like legitimately skilled.
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
But there's more of those guys. I think our point still stands.
Yeah, it's like, so like, why would you like think it's okay to put a middleweight against Tom Aspinall?
But okay, but this is the thing.
And then hold them to the same standard.
Yeah, but here's the thing: it wouldn't be like that. So if I were the one putting it on, I would not put Tom Aspinall against some 85ers, right? Because he's gonna smoke those dudes. What I would do is find guys who are on the level of, and I hate to like speak negatively about these guys' skills, but like Hungman Choi, Giant Silva, like dudes who are legitimately 350 pounds, and they know enough to like not get ruined, but like we really are gonna see now technique against size, And
so what you're looking for is an actual like legitimate middleweight, maybe like smaller light heavyweight versus like a mid-tier big guy. So yeah, you're looking, it's freak show stuff. That's all it is.
Yes. And I'm all for freak show stuff.
And I'm not.
Yeah. Like I have no problem with like celebrity boxing. I'm good with mixed rules fights.
Yeah, I don't think I hate celebrity boxing. Though.
Yeah. But you know what I'm saying? Like I'm down for freak show stuff, and I know you're much more of like a sports purist.
Yeah.
And I think that also has a lot to do with how you and I approach, whether we want to call it martial arts or MMA or fighting, whatever. Like I very much do look at it and like, dude, we should do a whole episode about this sometime of like how you got into this through wrestling, which is very much a sport. There's rankings, there's brackets, like it's very it's a sport. You know what I mean? Whereas like I come from like Bruce Lee traditional martial arts. Like it's about just beating dudes up. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I think that affects how we look at those things.
That would be good to talk about because I would like to talk about like just how like like if you're an American, right, and you want to win an Olympic gold medal in wrestling, every single person has the opportunity to do that. Every single person, because you can go enter the U.S. Open.
Yep.
And you're eligible. You enter the U.S. Open, and guess what? If you win that, you qualify for World Team Trials, and if you win that, you're on the World Team, and if you win that, like you won Worlds, and like and the same process on the Olympic year.
Yeah.
So literally, like I could go enter. I can still win the Olympic gold medal in 2024. I'm still eligible to do it. And what do I have to do? I have to go to the last chance qualifier, which will be in March, and I have to win that, which would qualify me for the Olympic trials, and I would have to win that. And then I'd be on the Olympic team, and then I'd have to go win the Olympics. Like, you know what I mean? But like, I literally have the opportunity. You literally have the opportunity to go do that. Like, you know what I mean? So it's not like, whereas like, like if you like were a really great fighter, like you could not get that opportunity.
Exactly. You could be hindered through like the politics of the sport and the more it kind of delves into that like entertainment.
Yeah. Like what if like you were like just like freak, right? And you're like, okay, came out, dude, did like 3 amateur fights, 2 pro fights, and like they're like, yo, you're literally the best in the world, right? But the UFC's like doesn't know because you're only 2-0, and now every single opponent will turn you down because they're like, I'm not fighting him. No way. I'd fight him if we were in the UFC, but you never get the shot. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, again, in fighting, there's just a lot. There's a lot out of your control that's going to influence. I mean, dude, even the end of your career, like I don't think we should name any names, but like there are guys who are doing well in the UFC right now who were part of the 14 guys to turn you down at the end of your career.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons that you stopped fighting, was because we were having a hard time finding you fights, even going up a weight class. And it made sense. Like, I wouldn't fight you if I was like, hey, I'm on my way to the UFC.
Yeah.
Like,
felt like I had dangerous skill, but maybe not the shiniest record.
Yeah, but
to justify fighting someone with that skill.
Exactly. So like, no,
and it's like, those are like business decisions.
For sure.
You know,
I'm
like,
not
I
mad
don't.
at these guys.
Like, I'm mad, but I'm not. Like,
I understand.
I understand. Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, but I think getting back to what you were talking about is like that pure sport aspect of it, of like everyone having a chance. Like, that's cool.
Yeah.
You know?
Dude,
so
sure.
I understand your view 100%, but I'm sticking by it. I want a Super Hulk tournament. I like some freak show stuff. I don't think that I think they can both exist.
Okay, yeah. You know what? I think they can too. For another topic that may come up later, though, so I'm not gonna jump on it. All right, so my number 3 was, the waiver. So my number 4, which we skipped over to talk about that together, is I wish the ADCC World Championships were yearly, not every other year. I wish it happened every year.
Oh, interesting. Is this same reason? Like, are you trying to like equate it with like wrestling worlds?
Well, I mean, if you look at wrestling, it's like even worse because we have the Olympics every 4 years, which I don't like that because people value the Olympics so much more than a world title. But it's the same thing. It's just who was the world champion that year, and the year that it's an Olympic year, they do the Olympics as opposed to the World Championships to like hold it in this big show of game. Like, you know what I mean?
But is that why you want it to be every year?
Well, yeah, that is partly why I want it to be every year. And I just think, like, like, why is it every other year? Like, sure, it adds maybe a little more, like, I don't know. I think the market's there for it to be every year, right? Like, you're telling me, like, dude, like, it's blowing up. You're telling me that you don't want to see it every year?
Well, I mean,
you know what I mean?
Almost all sports have some sort of yearly.
Yeah, there's a Super Bowl every year. There's a World Series every year.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I want to see the ADCC World Championship every year.
Now, dude, we're getting, like, man, there's a lot of interesting side topics here. How much, we've touched on this earlier.
It's every other year right now, by the way.
Right, yeah. But how much do you think that, martial arts and combat sports should kind of, like, look to other sports as a model for how they should run? Because I think they should totally look for them as a model for how they should develop, especially within striking. But that's a totally different conversation.
Yeah.
But in terms of how they're run and how often championships occur and stuff, like,
I just don't know why. Like, I just think there should be a championship every year. I don't know why. Like, I mean, I guess like you could look at the World Cup for soccer. That's every 4 years, right?
I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's every 4 years. But so there's that. But like, and you're like, oh, okay, so that's like the number one sport worldwide.
Okay.
But like, here's the other thing. So like, the main thing. So the ADCC, first off, it's super exciting. It should be every year. I think there's enough demand for it that it doesn't take away from it being every other year. You know. In addition to that, the main event is the super fight, right? And the super fight is against the defending champ versus whoever won the open weight from the prior ADCC. So this upcoming August, ADCC 24 would take place, and it is between Gordon Ryan, the defending super fight champ, versus who won the absolute in 2022. So that match, like, boom, right there, in 2 years, what the match is in the 2 years, right? Like, so essentially, if you didn't win it that year, your next shot is 4 years from now.
Dude, I've also got another issue with that too. Like, so much changes in those 2 years, right? So let's say the guy who wins the, the division. What if that guy then goes on like a 10-match losing streak?
He just lost. Yuri Samoa's the guy who's challenging Gordon Ryan for the ADCC title. He just lost to Nicky Rod last weekend.
Now these guys are going into it, and you're viewing them as like not necessarily the best and the best anymore. You know
Correct.
what I mean? Which I do think hurts the sport. And also, again, in those 2 years, there's injuries to deal with. There's, just like logistics. There's so much that goes into that. And like, why not just have it happen a year later?
Yeah, because like, honestly, there's a strong argument to be made then that the winner of the super fight, who is supposed to be viewed as the best grappler in the world, the single best grappler in the world, regardless of weight class, right then and there, there's definitely been years where the winner of that pretty much wasn't. Like, you could look at 2019, and that year, you could probably say Gordon Ryan was the best in the world, right? But Andre Galvao was the winner because Andre Galvao beat Felipe Pena, right? But Gordon in 2017 wasn't the same Gordon as 2019. You know what I mean? So it's like, essentially, like you can, like, things can play out to where you wear the crown without having to actually be the best.
Yeah, I was with you when you said it, and I'm even more with you
Like,
now.
if you look at it in comparison to MMA, now there's a little bit of, like, politicking in MMA and stuff, but what are the odds that the champ isn't fighting the next best guy, right? Like, yeah, if you just beat him, maybe he's got to get back in line and work his way back up, right? But, like, you know what I mean? The champ fights probably twice a year.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Not imagine the champ fought once every 2 years. Like, that's what's happening.
That would be infuriating.
And not only that, you knew the challenger 2 years.
Right.
Right? So, like, as you're saying, so much changes in 2 years, right? Like, who was who was the lightweight champ 2 years ago, right? Habib.
Lightweight champ. Yeah,
Habib.
Yeah.
Who was number 2 2 years ago?
I don't know, maybe Gaethje or
Dustin, like something like that. Maybe Dustin
yeah.
Poirier or whatever, right? Now, are they, I mean, okay, maybe this is a bad one because Habib retired, but, like, you could be like,
but
he's
that's a great point.
Win.
That's a great point. He's not the same Khabib. He's gone. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
he hasn't trained.
Maybe the welterweight division's better to use because it did have some more turnover.
Well, I mean, yeah, dude, how about, exactly. Let's look at the end of GSP's career, right? Okay, so imagine GSP and John Fitch were destined to run into each other 2 years later, right? And then 2 years later, John Fitch maybe was, on a downslide, and GSP is, like, retired. Or, I mean, there's just so many examples of fighters changing within a 2 year period. That's another thing, is fighters can fall off pretty quickly, right?
Yeah.
Like, let's look at one of the all-time greats, Anderson Silva. Up until fighting Chris Weidman the first time, he was, I think 9 years undefeated.
Yeah. So there you go. All right. So it'd be like that. It'd be like Anderson Silva. All right. Now he's about to fall off, right? And he fell off.
Yeah.
Okay. But so did, like, Weidman or somebody at the same time. Like, Weidman's not who I want to use, but let's say Vitor was falling off at the same time. But in 2008. Anderson won and Vitor won, so now they have to fight in 2010. And guess what? So in 2010, they're now, like, the 8th and 10th best, right? But they're fighting for the title, and one of them's going to win it.
Yeah.
And that means that one's going to fight for it in 2012.
Yeah.
When now they're, like, the 18th best, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You
like,
can gum up a whole division for 4 years at a time.
And that's, like, kind of what, I mean, that's what you're doing with this. Now, I mean, it's Gordon right now who doesn't seem to have any slide. But yeah, there's that. And, like, I just think there's, it's great. There's so much action in jiu-jitsu. Jiu-jitsu athletes really compete a whole lot, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I think, like, there'd be so much more, turnover and stuff in it. And, like, and an excitement. I think they would sell out every year. I think the excitement level would not drop, like, hardly at all.
Let's look at another sport that has a large amount of games. Can you imagine if baseball, they're like, hey, we're only doing the World Series every other year? Would that make any sense?
Yeah.
Like, no.
No, it wouldn't make sense. Wouldn't make sense. All right, let's move us on.
All right. I think we both agree very heavily on that.
Yeah, you're on your number 2.
All right. This one is, I think you'll agree with this. Okay. I don't know why we're making it agreement. This is great.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, it's not meant to be. It's just our wish list.
Okay. This one's pretty high on my wish list for a reason. I think, and there's kind of a specific reason for this, that we should have entertainment Muay Thai in PA.
I agree.
Yeah. Okay. So here's a couple of reasons why. Number one, I think entertainment.
What is entertainment Muay Thai?
All right. If you guys haven't listened to, or wait, no, that episode didn't come out. Oh yeah, it did. Yeah. If you guys haven't listened to our last episode when I talked about Luke the Chef.
Oh yeah, we did talk about it.
All right. If you haven't heard that about entertainment Muay Thai is 3 3-minute rounds as opposed to 5 rounds. A lot of times it's in a
Wait,
cage.
it's 3 threes?
3 threes.
Oh, okay. I thought it was 3 fives.
Threes. That's a super high pace.
Yeah.
It's oftentimes in a cage because they'll, like, mix cards. And it's in small gloves, right? So we get more knockouts. You kind of have to use a more active guard. Can't shell as much, and the clinching becomes a lot better because you can use your hands. And something we haven't seen in entertainment Muay Thai a whole lot yet. And I don't know if it's against the rules or whatever, but, like, just at range, just grabbing someone's wrist. I think Like that's a very strong strategy. But so aside from the fact that I think entertainment Muay Thai is just awesome as is, I also think you could then make mixed cards with MMA and Muay Thai. And, you know, I'm sure there's conflicting views on this, but like me personally, I don't love when we have mixed grappling and fight cards, right?
Yeah.
I don't dislike it, but I don't love it necessarily. And I think that there's kind of lulls in the crowd's, you know, reaction to it as well. Whatever. I'm not a huge fan of it. But I think that Muay Thai and MMA are similar enough, and I think that Muay Thai is as exciting, if not more exciting, than MMA, to the point that like it fits on the same card. And if you can do it in the cage, same gloves, all we're doing is just taking out the groundwork now and some of the takedowns. Let's let it rock. And then it gives opportunities for, you know, like we've got guys who would fight a lot more, but they just don't have the opportunity to, right? So like we've got fighters like Brody Harris, monster striker, not super interested in MMA, but we just don't have a lot of opportunities for him. And now that he's gotten really good, it's hard to find guys who will fight him, you know? He's 5-0-1. He's dangerous. He finishes guys. Like, where am I going to get this kid fights? You know what I mean?
Right.
You got to travel and everything. Whereas if this was available, there would just be more opportunity. And, you know, I think it's just good all around.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, I mean, like, I don't see like the downfall to it. Like, is it more dangerous because it's in little gloves? Like, I mean, like they're doing the same thing as the MMA fights do without takedowns.
In fact, I think that little gloves are less dangerous than big gloves.
Why?
Because the same thing we talked about before.
But you said more knockouts.
Yeah, that's less dangerous, right? Here's why. And this is why I think boxing is the most dangerous combat sport that there is. If you have big gloves on, let's say you and I are fighting, right? You knock me down.
Yeah.
I get the 8 count, right? Cool. I might have gotten concussed pretty bad there. And you know what's bad than a concussion? A subsequent concussion, like right after that.
Yeah.
You knock me down again. I make the count, somehow saved by the bell. Right on. We go into the next round. Maybe you knock me down once or twice in that round too. You know, and the big gloves themselves, like, you know, they allow me to take more damage before I go down. So maybe at the end of the round, you're pounding on me and I'm staying standing, right? I've taken so much damage over the course of those 2 rounds. Whereas if we went little gloves, boom, that one might have just done the trick.
Yeah.
And now it's over, right? So, you know, 1 concussion versus many. Now, it doesn't work exactly like that, but I do feel that overall, MMA and smaller gloves are safer than, you know, boxing, kickboxing, and bigger gloves.
Right on. Hey, I can get on board with that. All right. So open scoring. That would be my number 2. And as I said, my list progressively goes towards what I want most. So open scoring. So if you don't know what open scoring is, currently it's closed scoring system, mixed martial arts, at least domestically. In which you don't know what the score of the first round was until the fight's over. You don't know what the score of the second round was until the fight's over. I would love open scoring. Like in between rounds, they announce 2 judges have it 10-9 blue, 1 judge has it 10-9 red. After the second round, 1 judge has it 19-19, 2 judges have it 20-18 blue. Like, you know?
Yes.
It lets you know, like how the fight's going, what you need to do moving forward, right? And like how the judges are scoring it, right? Like, you know what I mean?
I
Like,
didn't even think about that.
if you're in like one of those, like, oh man, like you landed like 10 strikes on me, but I took you down and took your back, right? And a judge scored that against me, right? I'm like, oh, they're not really valuing like my control positions the way that like maybe I think they should,
Right.
and like so I know I have to like maybe switch up game plans there, and stuff like that. And it's like, you know, like, there's not many sports where like you don't know the score and the score allows you to adjust what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
Like if you didn't know the score of a football game, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like now, like, you know, 2-minute clock, right? Like that changes the way you play.
100%.
Maybe other combat sports are better to use. If I don't know the score of the wrestling match, right? And it turns out that I'm losing by 1 with 30 seconds left, you know what I mean? It determines how I wrestle this match, right?
Yeah,
if I'm losing by 1, then I need a takedown. If I'm losing by 4, then I need a takedown to your back. You know, like,
dude, I think football was actually a great example because in football, think about it, you could just take a knee, right?
Yeah.
And you know, you do that at the end of the game if you're winning, but you wouldn't do that if you weren't winning, right? Or if you're winning by like, you know, 6, this team's going to be going for a touchdown versus if you're winning by 1, they might just be going for a field goal, and it totally changes the strategy of what you're doing in those plays. I think that was a great analogy.
Yeah.
And dude, you know what? As soon as you said it, I was like, man, that's not on my list, but it should be, because I think that's a great idea. And then I didn't even think about that, but it totally does adjust like how you're going to go, like what your strategy is going into the next rounds, and how the judges are viewing the fight, just as opposed to like, oh no, we need to finish here.
Now what someone could say is like, okay, well then if you're winning 2 rounds going into the third, right, you might not fight as hard. Well, it takes 2 to tango, my man. And guess what? That other person is down 2 rounds. They should be fighting like a banshee. And guess what you have to do when someone's coming at you like a banshee? You have to fight back. Right? So what I actually think it does, where some people would argue that it will make one person fight more cautiously, yeah, it will. But it will guaranteed make the other person fight more viciously.
Yes.
And then that creates action. Whereas if they both kind of are like, oh, as long as I don't, like, if I don't lose this round, I win the fight, then you have those cautious standoffs.
100%.
And if you still have that cautious standoff, well, then you just had a timid fighter anyhow, and it was going to be like that regardless if the system was closed or open.
Exactly. And, like, the other fighter, if someone's up 2 rounds, they have to fight back not just to, like, stay alive, but also they have to make sure that, like, that doesn't become a 10-8 round, because now we have a draw.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, I think you're 100% right on that. I think it really does force the action, And, something that we kind of talked about this, one of the issues with Muay Thai and, entertainment Muay Thai is in traditional Muay Thai, we often see in the last round, sometimes the last 2 rounds, guys just dance around each other because they both think they've won, or, they're not trying to take damage, or whatever the reason is. Like, obviously to a lower degree, we kind of see that in MMA where you're like, oh, both these guys are kind of tired. Maybe both of them thought they won. They're kind of easing up a little bit. Whereas, like you said, if one of them knows definitively I'm down, or they each know they have a round, like, I got to put a stamp on this fight.
Yeah.
Dude, I think I could not agree with you more on that. I might even take one off my list, add it to the wish list.
Dude, I think it's good. And it's only not on the top of my list because I got one that's very, very important to me at the top of my list.
You know what? I know for a fact we don't have the same ones, but I still
know for a fact we don't have
I still feel pretty confident about, or I strongly want my my number 1. You got everything you got to say about that?
Oh, yeah, I'm set.
Point? All right. What are we at now? We're at the ones, huh?
Yeah.
All right.
Rip it.
Top of my wish list for combat sports changes. I would like to see 2 things be legal in professional MMA. I want 12 to 6 elbows.
Me too.
I want knees to the head of a grounded opponent.
I'm in.
And knees and kicks, right?
I'm in.
So here's what I'm thinking. 1, I'm sure most people are familiar with the story of why 12 to 6 elbows are illegal, right?
Why don't we just say it just in case?
Yeah, so way back in the day, it must have been some commissioner or whoever was making the unified rules.
Yeah.
They saw a karate
We're talking the
demonstration.
90s.
Yeah, this is way back in the day. So someone who doesn't know anything about MMA.
Like 30 years ago now.
Yeah.
That's
crazy.
Happened before probably a lot of you were born.
Yeah. But, one of the commissioners who was making these rules saw a karate demonstration on like ESPN or something on like late night, and he saw a dude either like break some boards or some ice or concrete or something using a 12 to 6 elbow, and so
too dangerous.
Yeah, the guy's like, that's too dangerous, we can't have that, which is absurd because anyone who's actually thrown elbows knows that's not even like the most powerful way to throw them.
Yeah, no.
There's nothing special about it. It's just another form of elbow strikes, but it's something that, MMA fighters are conscious about while they're fighting. They're like, oh, I gotta be careful. I gotta make sure I'm getting this and, like getting a little bit of an angle on it. Even standing, like that, you should be able to hit that. Like it's legal in Muay Thai and you see some cool knockouts from it. You know what I mean? I think it just hinders the game for no reason. Doesn't make anyone safer. So 12 to 6. I also think it helps, like anti-wrestling to a degree, because like if I'm a decent striker and someone gets in on a single leg and I have like my butt against the fence and I'm crushing elbows, like that's a good way for me to defend that, takedown. But if I know for a fact that I'm going to be really timid throwing an elbow like this, which might be illegal anyways depending on what I'm hitting,
where your head is,
but like there are times where you might hit an ear, hitting that. That might make someone a little bit more timid to throw that, and that could change whether or not they get taken down. I just think it's a dumb rule overall.
It is a dumb rule, and it's a dumb rule because of the origin of it.
Yes, 100%. If no other reason, the origin. And then knees and kicks to the head of a grounded opponent, the way I look at it is, why should I have to defend myself from punches on the ground, and elbows, but not knees and kicks, right? And also, what positions does this become like so dangerous that it's not good anymore?
Basically, like the dangerous, like where it is like, yo, like that's too dangerous is when you're knocked out.
Yeah.
When you're defenseless, right? Like you just get knocked out and you're like, whoom, and then it's just like punt, right? Like that's where you're like, whoa, that is like not, that should not, like, you know what I mean? So like that's the only situations of it. Like, were you getting kicked in the head on the ground? Like when you're on your back, like laying there, like you getting kicked in the head? No, unless you're like knocked out and they can come to the side of you and kick you in the head.
And also,
it's mainly going to be from like the front headlock position.
That's what I was going to say, is I think that sometimes wrestlers, if they're significantly better than their opponent, they're like, hey, you know what, I'm kind of tired and I know this guy, he might stuff my takedown, but then he's going to like be kind of stuck in that position. So they'll, kind of shoot a bad single, the guy sprawls and they just kind of hang on to it.
Yeah.
And there's no like real repercussions. And even if the guy builds up, they know, hey, I'm just going to stand back up or sit.
I also don't think it's that like lethal. From either. Like if I'm in a front headlock, I think it's going to be, if I'm like let's say stuffed, you sprawled on me, boom, I'm down front head position. I think you like being able to land a knee would be so hard.
Super hard.
Super hard. How are you getting your knee to my head without me like making some type of offensive attempt?
And even if you like built up a little bit and I have like like a good position to go.
Like I would have no fear.
Yeah.
Of the knees to the head there.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
I mean? Whereas like in a clinch, like I got some serious fear of the knees to the head. Shooting in from the open, I got a seriously healthy fear of getting kneed in the head.
Right.
Right? Down in front headlock, if you told me, hey, you're allowed to knee the head, I'm not even worried. Yeah. I'm not even worried about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But it would prevent someone from just like lazily staying there.
Right, yeah. I mean, you could do it if I was being like lazy, especially like bottom side control. Let's say you're top side, you could swing a knee.
Yeah.
Right? Like, first off, I'm not even worried about it. Like, I'm going to be able to stop you from doing that. I know I'm going to be able to stop you from doing that unless I was being incredibly negligent to it. Why would I be incredibly negligent to it if it was like, if I took it serious, right? Like if the only reason you would be able to knee me in the head there is because I'm not defending it. And the only reason I'm not defending it is because you're not allowed to do it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, dude, there's just so many reasons. Like, I think it's illegal just for optics. You know what I mean? Like, we've all seen Pride and, like, dudes getting stomped on and stuff. And, like, it looks dangerous, but it's like there's no real difference between you getting kicked in the head on the ground versus you getting kicked in the head standing up.
I just don't think there would be many of it. Like, it's like, hey, it's legal. I think, like, a lot of people are going to be, I think when it's going to happen the most is right away.
Yeah.
Until people adjust. Right? And then I think like it's going to be like so rare. It's like, well, dude, he kicked him in the head while he was on the ground.
And it's going to stop people from playing the game. You know what I mean? Like, I hate that just like, oh, hands down, oh, he's got weight on it. It's like, nah, dude, just like if you get kicked in the head, that was a you issue. You know what I mean? Like, that's something that happens in a fight that you should be able to defend against. Also, if you look at Muay Thai rules, as like you can kick the head of a grounded opponent if it's continuous motion, right? So let's say I throw a left hook immediately and do like, a kick, and that left hook puts my guy down and he's on a knee when my kick lands to the head. That's legal because it's continuous motion. You know what you don't see a whole lot in Muay Thai is guys getting really hurt from it, right?
Yeah.
Because one, obviously people are aware of that and they're trying to defend themselves, but two, the refs are so good. Like you'll see
them like teep a kick.
Exactly.
That's the craziest thing to me though. It's like they're that good that they're pow. I'm like, wow.
But it's not like it's just one guy who's doing that, because
they're like almost all of them.
Right. So why couldn't they get MMA refs at that level?
Bro, like. Here goes why, because it's not something you do as a child from a child on.
I mean,
that's why you're not going to get it at that level. And like also for a ref to be that close, there's a higher. So I feel like there's less motion in Muay Thai.
That's fair.
You know what I mean? Fair. There's less motion and diversity of covering the area in Muay Thai, which one allows the referee to be closer.
Yeah, that's a good point.
The way that MMA is done with a lot more motion, covering a lot more ground and a lot more chaotically, that would then in turn have the referee play a larger part in like, interfere an accidental interference.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. But okay, still one more point in favor of it. In both Pride and in 1FC, we saw, obviously it's legal to kick a knee to the head of a grounded opponent. Have we seen anyone get severely injured from those techniques, like more so than under unified rules?
No, we haven't.
No, we haven't. And we've even seen, super high level champs get knocked out with it, come back from it, and regain their throne. Demetrius Johnson did exactly that.
Yeah, wow.
So it's like it's a non-issue. It's taking away from the sport. It's making it more difficult for viewers to understand what's going on because is he down? Oh, he's not. Oh, his knee came up right at the last second. It's like we shouldn't have to do that.
Yeah.
So that's what I got. What's your number one?
Number one, and this is definitely more for me personally. May not be the most important to like the larger audience, but especially with this upcoming year being an Olympic year, I want 10 Olympic weight classes.
Oh, I like this.
So in the off years, the years where there are not Olympics, such as 2021, 2022, 2023, right? We wrestle at the World Championships, and there are 10 weight classes. And 10 weight classes makes sense for wrestling, right? But then during the Olympic year, due to the IOC having a stronghold over the amount of medals that go out, and the reason that wrestling is muted, or the volume has been turned down on it during the Olympic year, is they want to limit how many Olympic medals go out, which is very odd to me because they also set up the way that we wrestle back for bronze in a way that that allows for undeserving people to get bronze, right?
Is this something you could elaborate on quickly and fill me in, or no?
Okay, so all right, if you think about a wrestling tournament or a bracket, right? One that's a double elimination. So you have your front side where you're wrestling them to gold, and then depending on where you lose, you drop down into a loser's bracket, and then you wrestle back to bronze, right? You can then come back and take bronze from the loser's bracket. And that's how you determine third place. And your position there depends on where you lost. But it doesn't matter where you lost. If you lost first round, you still have a chance to take third, because what if you lost to the best guy first round?
Exactly.
Right? Well, that is not true in international wrestling. We use a wrestleback system called repechage. So what that means is you only get to wrestle for bronze if you lost to whoever is wrestling for gold, right? So
okay.
Yeah, so if I lose first round and then I took you to the brink, and like you should have won this tournament, but like I was like maybe second best, and we had a dog fight, and you just had, and this is all wrestled in one day anyhow too, and your next match is 30 minutes later, and you were better than this next guy, but I just took so much out of you that you're a shell of yourself, and you lose. Well, now I'm eliminated. I don't get a chance to come back for
that's
third.
Brutal.
Yeah. Now what that does, and then they also use random draw. Now we seed it. They used to seed the top 4, and now I believe we're seeding the top 8, so we're getting away from it. But they used to do random draw, and the reason they would do that is because now, like, somebody could catch, like man, dude, like, it's a 16-person bracket, and the 6 best are on the top side, meaning only one of those 6 best can make the final, and they do double bronze with double repechage, meaning that so the best guy is probably going to take first, the second best guy is going to take third, the third, the fourth, the fifth, and the 6th best guy are not going to medal.
Yeah.
And then here I am on the bottom side. I'm the 7th best guy. I take silver. Here I am on the bottom side. I'm the 16th best guy, but I happen to be the 2nd best on the bottom side. I take bronze.
Yeah.
Right? So now you got like this. And that way they feel they can get more countries represented in the medal count. Which is like, why are you limiting the medals then? Because they drop us down to 6 weight classes for the Olympics. And it's due to the medal count. And it's so they could fit more sports in. Right, is what they say, which I'm like, just don't limit the medal count. Like, why do you care? Like,
also, dude, cut any other sport but wrestling. Wrestling is the original.
Bro, they got flag football coming in for the 2028 games. Flag football,
dude.
It's like, yeah. So whatever. So anyhow, so we go down from 10 weight classes to 6 weight classes, and maybe if I tell you these weight classes, you could be more sympathetic to my cause. So I'm going to say them in pounds because I'm sure the bulk majority, 99.9% of our audience, is more familiar with pounds than kilograms. So we have 125 pounds, 143 pounds. That's a big gap. 174 pounds. That's a big gap. 189 pounds. That's a big gap. 213 pounds and then 275 pounds. Those are the weight classes.
Dude, let's say I'm aspiring Olympic wrestler and I walk around at a lean 139 pounds.
Bro, okay, let me jump on this too. Also, it's 2-hour weigh-in. You compete 2 hours after weighing in. So, like, let me use one that's like more in like the bell curve of humans.
Yeah.
Okay? Mm-hmm. You are a good, strong 170, you're 5'10", 178 pounds at 4%, 6% body fat. You're an elite athlete. Mm-hmm. You're burnt.
Yeah.
You're burnt. No because there's another dude like you who weighs 195 pounds and can cut that 6 pounds, or weighs 200 pounds and can deal with that 10-pound water weight cut. So, dude, that dude's got 22 pounds on you and like, you know, you're Olympic level wrestlers. So guess what? Size matters. Hey, and guess what? For you to get down to 174 and then wrestle 2 hours later, not 174, get down to 163, 74 kilos. Yeah. 74 kilos. Not a shot, dude. You got no shot. So we have these tweeners in every weight class, but I just hit you with a bell curve.
Yeah.
I hit you with a bell curve of an elite athlete, dude. Across, worldwide, right? Dude. And like there's no space for you, right? Whereas in the non-Olympic years, the years that we're at the World Championships, 125, 134, not bad. 143, not bad. 154, not bad. 163, not bad. 174, 189, 202, 213, and then heavyweight 275. Right?
That
like
makes so
completely reasonable. Completely reasonable. Now we go look, but if we narrow those down, we get these super matches, right? Because now you have the 70 kilogram world champ dropping down to wrestle the 65 kilogram world champ. No, you get a shell of this elite athlete sucking their body down. Or you get this elite athlete who now has to go up in weights that are out of class for him, and it eliminates the performance. So you do get these matches, but you know what would make for those matches to be cooler? Like, I don't know, like some super fight cards where, you got the Olympic champ here and the Olympic champ there going against each other.
Dude, and I, as someone who's all for all sorts of freak show, matchups, I feel like those should be completely separate from, like the sport aspect of it, right? Which the Olympics is supposed to be the highest level of like, this guy is actually the best at this weight, right? That allows to show you, show off your pound for pound skills. Whereas like, that's not what's occurring at the Olympics currently with that.
You know what I think will sit well with the audience? Using MMA. Let's use MMA. Hey, UFC's divisions, 125, 145. We got a 25, we got a 45, we got a 55, and then 185. 70 pounders, figure it out.
Yeah.
Move up to 185 or drop down to 155, right? Leon Edwards, you either got to go fight Izzy,
Strickland,
Yoel Romero, Strickland, like those dudes, or you got to just get down to 155, which you'll be a shell of yourself at, right? Like that's what we're looking at here. Oh, hey, 205ers, no, you're heavyweight or you're sucking down to 85, right? It's essentially what is happening here.
Yeah, it's absurd.
Yeah,
makes no
sense.
And
it's terrible. I hate it. So my number one wish would be for. And like it's like consistency. It's like consistency. It's like, hey, like 75% of the time we have these weight classes that provide such a tremendous product. It's not like we don't have like parity and like great matches. Like, dude, like the round of 32 matches, like, in the final 32, right? It's like number 1 versus number 32 is a dog fight like a lot of the times. You know what I mean? Henry Cejudo, which a lot of people are very, very familiar with, is the 2008 Olympic champion. He was the 32 going in. He was the 32. That's how competitive it can be. Like It is not unheard of for number 32 to win, right? And it's like, all right, like so it's not like we need it's not like a supply and demand issue. Right. Like, hey, there's just not enough people to make it like competitive without adding these people in. No, dude, there's plenty.
And
there's
also
plenty.
in the wrestling community, So like one issue that people have who are like, fans of boxing is that they've added too many titles, right? And there's just belts everywhere, and it's just too watered down.
There's a lot of belts for one weight class too.
For that, but also they're like, oh, there's a lot of weight classes, right?
Yeah, and there are.
There are, but in wrestling, is that an issue? I don't think so.
Well, first off, it's nothing compared to boxing, right? Boxing weight classes, some are like 4 pounds apart.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're talking about 4 pounds. I'm talking about 19 pounds between the two lightest weight classes.
Yes.
How many boxing weight classes are there between 125 and 143?
Oh, dude,
right?
Million. Yeah.
Yeah. There's like, I think there's 4. I think there's 4 that fit inside those two positions.
Yeah, I don't know exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right? So like, it's like, wow. And we have 0.
Right.
There's 4. We have 0.
Yeah, I think they swung the pendulum far
dramatically too far in the other direction. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
man.
So that's my number one, especially it being the Olympic year and especially wrestling being my favorite thing in the world.
Well, luckily for us, I think tons of people in the IOC and tons of the athletic commissioners
are listening to this podcast,
and they're gonna make some changes and give us what we want.
That's right. Our Christmas wishes are gonna come true. Hey, I do want to take one step back to open scoring.
Yeah.
Since we hit that topic today, and I do think that's probably the one that's most. I feel like our number one. What was your number one? Knees to the ground, head of the ground opponent. Kicks. So open scoring. I feel like my number one was a little bit like more like niche to me. So like the open scoring, which I feel like a lot of people are probably interested in and could get on board with and could have varying opinions about, where we could have a good discussion and like needle some things out, although we're all going to come to the same conclusion I came to. How would you start to implement it? Like,
I think it's pretty easy, actually.
You just be like, hey, we're doing open scoring now.
Yeah.
But like, does one state do it? No, that state's different. Or do you try it on like a certain events? Do you try it in a certain organization? Does the commission first allow that to be an option?
I would say the commission would have to allow that to be an option.
And still keep close scoring. That way, not everybody has to make the change. And then that commission is singled out. So
here's how realistically I would see it happening is one state decides to be, the tip of the spear, and really progressive with it, and they make it allowable. They don't force it, but they make it allowable. And then some promotion that thinks it's a good idea has to implement it, and that promotion
maybe is grabbing onto that as like that's their unique thing.
Exactly. And they're going to have to then provide a scoreboard of some sort, that the competitors can both see, right? That has to be facing in towards the cage.
Or could it be announced?
Or it can be announced. That too. Yeah, that would make it simple.
Who's number one? WNO, Flow Grappling's Jiu-Jitsu, like promotion type thing. It's a 15-minute match for the regular matches, 30-minute match for title matches. And every 5 minutes, so once it hits the 10-minute mark, lights go up. So it's either red or blue. There's red or blue lights that go up, and announcement goes, judges favor blue.
Actually, it's even simpler than I thought. Check it out. So, the 3 judges, they turn in their scorecards, and you have one runner who runs them all to the main commissioner. The main commissioner adds up the scores, determines who won that round. That's going to take, 15 seconds, right?
Well, you don't even need to add the scores up. Like,
you just go. That's what I'm saying. Like, these
you don't
two
even
judges.
Honestly, if you didn't want to have to like do the math and maybe have there be a potential mistake on the math, you could leave the math on the corner. You could just go who won that round. Like I could run and I could go up to you, I could go up to your corner, right? When they're like at the 10-second clacker, when they're like seconds out, we can have each go, like we got to have 2 runners, one for the red corner, one for the blue corner, like you have inspectors. And they go, 2 judges went blue, 1 judge went red. And that's it. Like, it's just a matter of fact. And then you, as the corner and the fighter, would look at your wrist and be like, oh, there's 2 judges against me, 1 judge for me. Or, oh, all 3 judges went against me. And then in the second round, you do it again and be like, last round I had 2 for me, this round I have 2. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. And that actually is kind
that
of...
That way, you can't be like, well, the inspector said that I had this.
Right.
And then you also have a scoreboard up.
So I think the only issue with what you're saying is if there's a 10-8. Right? Because then the score itself matters as opposed to just red or blue. Right?
Yeah.
But I think you're right though. I think you have a scoreboard, right, that has to be accessible for both corners to see, right? And that way, even if it's loud and you mishear, whoever tells you.
Oh my gosh!
Maybe
this is such a travesty because I want to get into the scoring system now, because what's the difference between a 10-8 and a 1-2, right? Like, okay, like if I won the round, you get a point. Oh, I get. Oh, yeah. And if you won by 10-8, then you have 2 points.
Dude,
it's the same thing.
I was actually thinking
it's mathematically the same thing.
I was thinking of putting exactly that on my wish list, but the problem is if we dive into scoring, this is going to take us forever.
Instead of 10-8, 10-9, like, you know what I mean? So like
make it 1 or
instead
2.
instead of taking point, and now we're out here doing math and doing subtraction, right? Like instead of being like, okay, well the winner gets 10 and then you subtract points for the loser.
Yeah.
Like, why are we doing math? Why are we subtracting? Why are we going negative? Why don't we add points? Like, you won the round, so you get a point. Oh, you won the round, which what we would consider a 10-8. Oh, you won a 2-point round.
And check it out.
Oh, this would be a 10-7. Oh, you won a 3-point round.
And check it out. It's a tie, 0-0.
0-0. That does give you the opportunity for a 0-0 round.
But
or if you wanted to keep it like 10-point must system, but do it the way that we're discussing, how would you take points away though? Because fine, you could take points away.
I don't know, dude.
Or taking points away would be giving, maybe you award a point. Like a penalty, like if you get a penalty in wrestling, the other person gets a point.
Oh yeah, I see what you're saying.
You could do that. Yeah. I mean, dude, you could just like and then you got to score, and then it's like, damn. Instead of being like, oh, I beat this person 30-26, meaning that you had a 10-point round, be like, I want 4-0.
Yeah, exactly.
Shut out 4-0. Oh, I had 2 10-8 rounds. Well, first off, why didn't you get the finish? 2 10-8 rounds. But I 5-0, dude. 5-0. Be like, oh man. And then like, oh my God, there was a 6-0 match. Like, how did that person survive?
Right.
Yeah,
I actually, I mean,
were there penalties? No, 6-0, no penalties. Wow.
Without diving into it, I think that's the best way to do it.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah. But real quick, getting back to open scoring, dude, super simple. You have the scoreboard, right? Each judge has, like a clicker or some way to, make it go to that scoreboard. The ref, he gets you guys.
They don't even need a clicker. They could literally have scorecards, and you could have a runner take it to the scoreboard operator.
Either way, but like, do you think that within 15 seconds you could have those on the board?
Absolutely.
For sure, right? Then the ref, he's probably taking that 15 seconds to get guys to the corner. Then he goes, looks at the board, and usually the refs come to you between rounds and they tell you,
like, hey, watch out for grabbing the fence.
Right.
Hey, make sure you keep those kicks. It's an amateur fight. You're not allowed to kick head. Make sure you keep those kicks below the shoulder.
Yeah. They usually have something to say.
Yeah.
They come over and they go, hey, by the way, it is a 10-8 round for that guy, or it was 10-9 for you, or hey, dude, it was a 10-10 round. It was a tie.
What if each judge, it was 1 point, right? And you got the point from each judge. So like, all right.
Oh.
So like instead of like a split decision, you have actually a score.
Yeah.
Right? So like, all right,
I like
it's 1 point. It's 1 point per round, right? So like it's me, you, and Joe. We're the judges. We each give it to blue. He gives it to red. So it's 2-1.
Yeah.
What's the score after round 1? So a unanimous, like we all, then it's 3-0. But there it's 2-1.
Yeah.
And then if that guy wins the whole second round, if it's 3-0, he wins the whole second round, now it's 3-3.
Dude, that's fantastic.
Dude, this is it. This might be it. Hey, stay tuned for another episode.
Oh, yeah, we're definitely going to have to
listen
do
to
this.
your coaches. Fixes the MMA scoring system.
Oh, dude, I love it.
All right, yeah, I can't go any deeper. We'll go another hour on this. So, hey, that's it for this Christmas episode of Listen to Your Coaches. Hope you guys enjoyed. We'll see you again next time.